Oh, hi neighbor. Welcome to my neighborhood. Well, as the host of The Virtue on the second string debate team, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of cool things. Interview people on the streets, conduct a lot of podcasts, written several articles and pieces, but the one thing that I have never got to do is be the interviewee. And tonight, that all changes because I hand over the reporter's jacket to my best friend, Jace Stevens. He's going to conduct an interview on me tonight, and we're going to see what the results of that are. Whatever they may be, I hope you enjoy them.
Break the couch. I think you definitely did.
Oops. Welcome to The Virtue. I'm your host. Oh my god. Alex, who owns the couches? Micah. Micah? I don't feel too bad. He made me ride downhill for 10 miles. Anyways, that's what Starlight felt like. Broke me. Oh. Anyways, welcome to our show. This is interviewing time with Jace. What do you want to call this?
Whatever you want. It's your show. You're the journalist.
Okay.
I'm just
by the end.
subject.
I'll have a better name.
Interviews with Jace for right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
We could talk like vacuum moments.
Broken couch syndrome.
Broken couches.
What broken couch?
Not this one. Anyways, today I'm going to be interviewing a great guest, a great friend, Javin Bear.
That's me.
You might know him from the second string debate team. He's also, we'll throw a plug in.
I'm Javin. That's my banner. I painted it.
He also does The Virtue, and now I'm here. Honestly, I really don't know what I'm doing, but I'm here, and we're all here, so let's get started. So when did you realize that you wanted to start a podcast?
As far as like, well, there was two things. One dates back to a friend of mine, Carlin Page, that we were in the barracks together, and he had the idea of starting a podcast about like a week in the life of a soldier. And every time we tried to do it, we would just get way too drunk off Miller Lights, and nothing would ever come of it.
So that was fitting. You still should have put that in. That pretty much was it.
That's essentially what a week in the life is like. But then the first time that you and I went on set with Alex, when we helped with the documentary he was filming on CJ.
It's a little heavy. It's a little lower. All right, we can probably do that. I'm defeated. I'm gonna get there though.
Okay, cool. You got like 9 feet?
We're just gonna start making a secondary documentary of Jace figuring this out.
Come on, hold on. Sure.
I want you to be over here doing it.
I already did this before.
Yeah, well, then don't assign it to me who has not.
Being around a set like that for the first time just felt cool. Like I liked, like it, you know, as small as the sets are, like I like the lights, I like the camera, like I just thought the whole process that went into it was cool. And you, Seth, Alex, CJ, myself, all being there that day, we were just hanging out, and I was sitting like kind of on the outside for a while, and I was just looking at the conversation that was happening between everybody, and I was like, you know, I hang out with a pretty eclectic and educated group, like might as well see if these conversations can do something or go somewhere.
So it's been a while. So what was the first podcast? What was the first one that we did?
Well, the first podcast, no one will ever see because I remember the first podcast vividly. It was Alex left everything up to my control. Except for like setting up the camera and lighting and things, and we filmed at that like kind of square table, rectangular table that CJ had at his garage.
Oh, okay.
It was the four of us, I think. Seth couldn't make it to that one.
Okay.
And it was...
Oh, yeah. That was the first?
That was the very first one.
Interesting.
And we actually recorded 2 that night. I think we recorded a total of 3 hours of content. And when Alex and I watched through them, we were like, none of this can be shown to the public, because it wasn't like we said anything like so wild or absurd.
Javin's my little slave girl, part 1.
That like, oh my God, you can't show that to me. It was the fact that you and I were sitting on the same side of the table. We did nothing but talk to each other, because I had this like Joe Rogan idea of podcast. So I was like, everybody get as blasted as you can before you just start doing this.
Okay.
And we were so high. And you and I were just giggling about fucking whatever we could think of. Alex and CJ are debating fucking politics. And then there's still a separate there's 2. It was like if you plugged in 2 podcasts at the same time.
It's a 2-for-1.
Yeah, like it was like listening to fucking Bad Friends and Elon Musk at the same time.
Hey, that could have brought you more audiences.
Who knows, man? Maybe there's people out there that are like, I like the chaos.
One side's listening to us, one side's listening to the other, then they start fighting in the middle.
Yeah, they start arguing about
who
maybe they think we're talking about the same thing.
Maybe. Because if we were, that's outlandish.
But yeah, that was the first one. The first one that actually landed, though, that we could actually put onto YouTube was in the townhome, and that was at the dinner table. That was the one where you and Kelly came in at the end, and we just ended up keeping it in. And you had your song and dance about Jesus.
Bless him.
He is the one. But yeah, that was, and I don't know. We just like, especially like starting that right, like marginally right before COVID hit. We had so much fun because it was just back and forth to apartments and places, and
it was.
Everybody was together. It was a good time.
So why did you start all? What led you to like, besides the podcast, like obviously what you just talked about, Carlin, but what led you to wanting to do this? Why did you feel the need to?
Well, I guess there was a point in like my early 20s where people would talk about the country and politics and current events around me, and I would have no fucking idea what they were talking about. And that kind of made me uncomfortable, because I was like, am I uneducated? Do I not know about this? Whatever. So I started reading more and more about the news, or just the news in general. And I started to learn about bias and implicit bias and things like that. And then, when I was real young, like 21, 22, as, most opinionated people did at the time, you would take to Facebook. And I would write things on like gun control, or, whatever politics or policies I was, involved in at the time. And then I remember people like commenting and being like, this is really well written, like you're really good at this. And that kind of like gave me a bit of an ego boost. And then once I was, later on when I was in the Army and I made the decision where I knew I wanted to get out, that faced me with the decision of like, what the fuck am I going to do once I leave this? Because I can't just like panhandle. I mean, I guess I could. And so, I took to that strong suit. Like, I looked at, like, what are you really good at? And so I started writing these small pieces, and I would put them up on Instagram and Facebook. And the only people that really saw it at first were people that were in my company, or, in my battalion or whatever. And then I guess the day that I knew like what I wanted to pursue once I got out of the Army is I had a friend of mine that came back from a training exercise, and he was like, dude, I saw your thing that you posted while I was out there, and I read it. And he was like, I was just in this little talk, and there was a random major in there. He was like, what are you reading? And I showed him, and he read your article, and he was like, what the fuck is this dude doing in the Army? Like, this guy's smart. Like, this, this is intelligent. This is something that should go somewhere. And that's kind of when I stopped being so afraid of putting out my work and, like, actually, like, promoting it and, like, starting its own page and things like that. Because I think that's all it takes sometimes, like a small ego boost.
So that reminds me of what we were talking about in a previous video about seeking self-education. Do you feel that everyone should go out and seek a little bit of political, historical knowledge, even if, like I'm not a very political person, but do you think that there is a certain level of everyone should at least educate themselves on what is, current events, maybe historical events about our country, about what we're seeing today, what we're facing today, because they always say like history repeats itself. So do you think that there's a certain level of, you started to notice that once you dove more into your education?
Oh, 100%. And I don't think that everyone should become as involved as I am in politics, or involved as, any friend or acquaintance you have that's like down that rabbit hole. The reason that I chose that as an avenue is because that's what intrigues me. I think that whatever tugs at your heartstrings, that's what you should educate yourself upon. Because it's absurd to think that any person can be, and this is a flaw in our society right now, we think that like everyone should know about everything. Like when you bring up a topic, and I'm going to use something right now that everybody is well aware of, but like you bring up George Floyd, you should know everything about that, and that's like what people assume. That's not necessarily the case. You should be educated in what you want to learn, in what you care about. And I hate apathy. Like, I don't care if you care about politics. I don't care if you care about world events. I don't care if you care about pop culture. I don't give a shit, as long as you care about something. Apathy is a plague. It destroys everything that it touches, and so much you hear from people like, like they think they're fucking nihilists or something, like Big Lebowski style nihilists, and it's just absurd, man. Like everybody cares about something, so educate yourself on that. Be like, you don't have to be the guy at the party that can talk about everything, but you should be the guy at a party, or the girl at a party, or the person at a party that can open their mouth about something. You should know enough about what you care about that if it's ever brought up around you, you can educate others. That's my mindset, because for a long time, to your question, I had a really strong chip on my shoulder for a long time. Like, why the fuck don't you know about this? Why, blah? And I blame the media, I blamed people, and really, I think the media is to blame. Like, you can't, it's such a saturated environment that to care about everything is absurd.
Yeah, I could see that. Now, what are your other interests that you could potentially see yourself writing about?
Writing about, man, I could write about anything.
If this, you talked about, like, what if the second string debate team never pans out to be something, and obviously you're pursuing a career, but how you were saying you pursue what you're interested in. Like, what are other interests that potentially you would want to write about or would pursue writing about?
My other interest, as far as like writing about or creating, would have to be comedy, because for anyone that watches these videos or reads anything that I put out, it's very seldom that I don't put out something that has an element of like punchlines or ha-has or whatever.
That's why we all know that's it.
There is a javelin that has killed a whole slew of people. Like, anything can be taken out of context. And that's for a couple of reasons. Like, I feel that if you look at the world, and this is a crazy thing coming from a journalist, but if you look at the world from a purely objective view, you're gonna fucking shoot yourself. Like, you can't look at the calamitous state that we live in and think, just straight-laced about anything. There's humor in all of it. You have to find that. If you can't find the humor in something, then I really think you're failing on studying it. There's humor in everything.
Okay.
And if I was to write about that kind of stuff, like say journalism just doesn't pan out and I, fall into something else, I would love to write just my own, like, how do I phrase this without sounding kind of pretentious, but like my life has been very chaotic, and I have been able through years and years to find a lot of humor in that. And I think that writing about situations like what I've been through can translate to other people to show them that like there is a silver lining to everything that happens to you, no matter how fucked up it is, no matter how confusing it is, no matter like if you find out your dad's not your dad at 18 type shit. Like,
yeah, your life has truly been my favorite punchline. Like, without a doubt.
No, it truly is, man. My life's fucking weird. And for a long time, especially when I got into writing and I focused primarily on the news and about that kind of subject matter, I felt like my story was not important. But the older I get and the more I reflect on what I've been through and what I've lived through, I think there is a certain level of importance to it.
Do you see importance on a personal level, or do you see it that would you look at it and think that what other people are doing are more important? Because I feel like that comes down to your interest again.
Yeah.
You know, if let's say like environmentalists, they really like very conservative about the forests, you know, oil, all these things. Like you go back and forth, like the pipeline that got shut down. There's both sides of it. You know, hurts the economy, helps the forests, and vice versa. So do you think that to other people, there's obviously like more relevance to what their interests are?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that what I produce here or personally will touch everyone. But I do think that the people, like, idealistically, the way I look at it is if I write something really personal, and if I can write it in a way that shows people that you can, you know, I guess overcome whatever. That's the audience I'd like to touch.
So you just said something that I kind of want to branch off of. Is you said that essentially what I got from it is that there's a style to your writing. Do you see that a lot in journalism? Is there a lot of journalists that you see have their own particular style? They put their own flair on it, or is it a lot of just getting the information out there?
No, and as it goes with journalism, pure objective journalism, you should not have a flair in there. You should not have a style. It should be purely the facts. And those are the hardest pieces for me to write personally. Not because I want to lie and like spin my own thing, but it's because it's not to say that it's any less intriguing than another piece, but it's more difficult. Because when I wrote about Vanessa Guillen, when I wrote about George Floyd, when I wrote about like Kamala Harris in recent events, you have to be, if you do want to interject humor in there, it cannot overshadow the fact. So as a pure objective journalist, I say no, you shouldn't have your own flair or style. But as a writer, you absolutely should, because the two do converge. Like a writer that is well-rounded, that can find the humor and can find the punchlines, but can also find the articulate point where to interject that's important. So.
Yes. So if you are a journalist and you do add, kind of the punchlines, does that almost build a little bit of an evidence of bias?
Yes, because I mean, to have a good punchline, it has to hit. It has to stab somebody. And in order for someone to be stabbed, somebody has to be the victim, you know. So that's the dichotomy of it all. And like when I do begin working purely in objectively paid journalism, there will be no humor, there will be no punchlines or ha-has. But if I ever get the opportunity to be my own independent writer, then for sure. Like, I'll interject whatever the fuck I want in there because it's my story. And that's the beauty of this page, is like, when I write things, and I have said this countless times and I'll say it again, I'm not an objective news source. I'm somebody that presents you with facts. I put jokes in there sometimes, and it's your information to do with it what you please. If you hate it, if you like it, if you want to shape your own worldviews around it, then that's fine. If not, then fuck it.
Honestly, I think your joke sucks. Anyways, well, thank you for watching another episode of Jace's interview. I say another. This is.
You said you'd have a better title by the end.
This is Interviews with Jace. Wait, I gotta say like 8 more. This is 2 guys on a couch.
You're done.